Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll gain confidence, clarity, and a competitive edge in a crowded marketplace so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm talking about the latest news in the creative industry, which is quite shocking. And that is an announcement made by Canva and Serif. Okay, so just off the heels of the Adobe Figma merger being stopped, we have another big acquisition in the industry, but this one happened out of nowhere and so fast. And that is that Canva acquired Serif, which is a UK company and the creator of the Affinity software. Now, this happened on March 26, 2024. Serif says on their website, "We have to say that selling Serif was not on our minds at all, but when Canva contacted us only a couple of months ago, there was something about it which just felt right." Like I said, it happened fast. So what's going to happen now is that Serif will be a division of Canva Inc. The Affinity products were owned by Serif, an independent company that was founded in 1987, and they released the first Affinity product back in 2014. Affinity software has products that compete with Adobe in terms of page layout, photo editing, and illustration. Affinity Publisher, not to be confused with Microsoft Publisher, is similar to Adobe InDesign. And then Affinity Photo is similar to Adobe Photoshop, and Affinity Designer is similar to Adobe Illustrator. But the apps are not as bloated or as buggy as Adobe apps. I did a comparison actually of Adobe Publisher versus Adobe InDesign in episode 106. I need to update that though because Affinity Publisher has added some features since then, so it's no longer a totally accurate post. Okay, but anyway, the Affinity apps are actually used by 3 million designers, and they're especially popular because they're not on a subscription model like Adobe has had for years. I mean, you can buy each Affinity app for $49 USD or $115 for all three. I mean, you just can't beat that. Okay, and then Canva Inc. is an Australian company that's been around since 2013. And Canva is used by 175 million people. Okay, but much to many designers' dismay, it's used by mostly non-designers. But many designers use it as well, especially when having to work in teams. And Affinity apps, they have been always specifically geared toward professional designers and maybe some hobbyist designers too. Okay, now Canva in the past has acquired other companies, and some of those are Flourish, Kaleido, Smart Mockups, Pexels, Pixabay, and Slides Carnival. I'm not familiar with all of them, but I did not know that about Smart Mockups, Pexels, and Pixabay. Did you? I mean, I know that the stock images are actually integrated into Canva, but I didn't know that they had acquired them. And I was surprised that they had acquired Smart Mockups too. So why did Serif decide to sell Affinity to Canva anyway? Especially, they said they weren't even thinking about it. And then back in September 2022, they tweeted, "Ain't nobody acquiring us." I mean, a lot of designers are calling them out on that. But hey, it's not like, they could have predicted the future, or they're not allowed to change their minds. Serif said it felt like a great fit. They said, product-wise, it's a great fit as Canva do not have professional design tools as part of their offering, and we do not have any cloud or collaboration as part of ours. Okay, then they also went on to say that they think that together they will be able to create the world's most comprehensive visual communications offering, and that they have the same mission and vision that design should not be limited to those who can afford complex software. That's a dig at Adobe. So they think that this acquisition will accelerate this vision of theirs. Now, they also issued an Affinity and Canva pledge, which talks about 4 key points: fair pricing, accelerating affinity, accessible for all, and community-led. Now, as to fair pricing, Affinity says on its website, "We're committed to fair, transparent, and affordable pricing, including the perpetual licenses that have made Affinity special." As for accelerating Affinity, they say, "We will double down on expanding Affinity's products through continued investment in Affinity as a standalone product suite." And as for accessible for all, they say they will provide Affinity software free to schools and nonprofits. Now, they're not saying accessible in terms of accessible to people with disabilities, although Affinity Publisher recently got some accessibility features, which is really exciting. And if they continue with that and make it really good, then, people could ditch InDesign. Now, as for community led, they said, we're committed to listening and being led by the design community at every step in this journey. So what will this Affinity acquisition really mean for designers? You might be wondering. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how things play out, okay, for a few reasons. And the first one, which is on so many designers' minds, is the pricing model. Will we eventually see a subscription model for Affinity in the future? Many graphic designers suspect that Affinity will eventually move to a subscription-based model, just like every other company has gotten on board with. And they say if they do go that route, it will only ever be as an option alongside perpetual licenses. We'll see about that. Time will tell. Well, the other thing about that, though, is maybe they'll offer certain features through updates, as part of a monthly fee or something, but that the perpetual license, that perpetual license has always been a huge selling point for their software. So I don't see why most designers would choose a subscription option. And another thing to think about is accessibility. Okay, and not in terms of financial, in terms of accessibility to people with disabilities. Not long ago, like I said, Serif incorporated accessibility features into Affinity Publisher. Canva, on the other hand, is notorious for exporting inaccessible PDFs that need a ton of remediation to make them accessible. So could this potentially mean that Canva will be made more accessible? I mean, that would be really great for a lot of designers and non-designers who are creating documents and, brochures inside of Canva instead of, using InDesign, which is way more meant for the job than Canva. I mean, if you had to dig a hole, wouldn't you use a shovel, not a spoon? So anyway, I am personally curious if Canva is interested in making the output of the designs more accessible. So we'll see about that. Now, another point is competition. Will this acquisition possibly make it easier for the Affinity Suite to compete with Adobe software? Maybe this will be helpful in a financial or development way for Affinity Suite, right? I mean, because Serif said in their announcement that this acquisition will help them take Affinity to new levels. And they went on to say, their extra resources, meaning Canva's extra resources, will mean that we can deliver much more, much faster. Beyond that, we can forge new horizons for Affinity products, opening up a world of possibilities which previously would never have been achievable. And then we've got new opportunities for designers potentially, right? This could mean a ton of new opportunities. They also said, we're looking forward to accelerating the rollout of highly requested features such as variable font support, blend and width tools, auto object selection, multi-page spreads, EPUB export, and much more. These additions will further cement Affinity as the best advanced design suite on the market and will be released over the coming year as free updates to version 2. They also mentioned a possible future integration between Canva and Affinity products. Now, I was actually wondering that myself before I even came across them mentioning that. I was thinking it might be like what InCopy does with InDesign, right? But it also reminds me of Dreamweaver templates, back in the day, and then being able to lock clients out of the code, but you could still edit the code in Dreamweaver. So it sounds like what they're planning could be similar because they also said creative and brand management teams need professional tools to create and edit assets, images, icons, logos, and other elements. And Affinity apps are the perfect choice for that. Being able to quickly sync those assets to Canva for the wider organization to easily use within their documents, presentations, whiteboards, and other visual communication materials would make a lot of sense. Okay, that sounds really interesting, and I'm sure that many designers would find that to be very useful. They also said that they don't have a specific plan for this, but that they want to offer a way for users to easily sync Affinity files and assets to different devices and to share and collaborate with Affinity files. And they attribute this being possibly because of Canva's platform. Now, from what designers have been saying online, most of them do not seem to be happy about any of this news at all. Okay, designers in my Design Domination Facebook group and elsewhere, they're saying that mergers like this never benefit the end user, only the companies involved. And yeah, that's typically been the case. Most designers, myself included, we suspect that Affinity will eventually move to the subscription-based model. Now, When I did some research on this to see what people were saying too, I wanted specific comments. I found this one pretty interesting. This was under Canva's announcement about it on Twitter, and this seemed to sum up a lot of designers' feelings. Someone said, everyone under the Canva announcement thinks this is great. Everyone under the Affinity side of this announcement is horrified. And that was a tweet by Michael Irwin. Many designers also feel very strongly that real designers don't use Canva. And I talked about why designers should embrace Canva, not hate it, in episode 117. So I wonder if some designers think this is going to give Affinity a bad look now. So what say you? How do you feel about this? What do you think that this means for Canva and for Affinity software? Let me know in a comment. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If this content was helpful, you can support the podcast by buying me a coffee. It might actually end up being a glass of wine or some tea, but you could go to buymeacoffee.com/creativeboost.